Hello and welcome to part 2. This is the second part on my kind of mini-series going over the Days That Shook the World episode on the Romanian Revolution. The first part got excellent reception. It's the most amount of views I've got in a specific period, so thanks to the YouTube algorithm. So now we will go over the second half of the video, and trust me, the uniforms, we get a much clearer view of them, and that is not necessarily great for it. And also, we will be going over other points which make the first part's Timișoara comments look like the most authentic, realistic thing you could ever imagine. So strap in, because it's going to be quite fun. As usual, I will say this quickly, and I think in the future I'll just put it in the description. I'm not an expert. I will be given sources, and I also will make mistakes. So please comment any mistakes, and I will do my best to correct them. Thank you. So, right, for the first part, we will start. So, at around 15 minutes 30 seconds in, it makes mention to how the army was unwilling to crush the protesters. And again, this is absolutely in favour of the documentary because this is an absolutely correct point. In my opinion, for an armed forces, an army for example, to crush protesters, there needs to be a large gap, a distance between the population and the army in general. If we take an example of this, as the Romanian army was firstly a conscript army, that means you would have multiple family members and generations of family in the army. Then also on top of that, they were also used for construction, so not professional kind of army training, but also construction, which again brought the army and the units closer to the population as they would be just used as general workforce. Then there was little training on top of that. It was very poor quality training. And also at the end of the day, they began to join the protesters because not only did they completely understand where the people were coming from, but also they would have family members, friends, physically standing in the lines of the protesters. And if you're poorly trained, if you've built up parts of the country physically through your labour, and also maybe your father, your grandparents, brothers and sisters were conscripted, you aren't going to have the ability, the psychological ability to disconnect yourself and say, right, these protesters, I'm going to follow orders and fire on them. That's not going to happen because physically and psychologically you are so close to them. So that's an excellent point that the documentary's made. The next point made is at 1855, and this is an error because while it's totally possible that the pilot had said there was problems, in the book on page 58, it references an interview after the revolution with the pilot in which he said that there was danger of the helicopter being tracked by radar and that it might be shot down. So it's totally possible that he also said there was mechanical problems, but from his physical interview and writing, I'm going to say that this is wrong and that it should have been that he said that they would have been shot down if they had not landed. But again, this is a small thing, and it's totally possible it was the other way, but I'm going to go with the interview they actually had with the pilot after the revolution.
As Bucharest is enveloped in chaos, the Ceaușescu's escape is becoming farcical. The helicopter pilot invents technical problems and dumps his passengers on a deserted roadside. A local doctor driving to work spots the desperate couple and their bodyguard trying to flag down a ride. It is Eleanor, not Nikolai, who stops him at gunpoint.
Right, okay, this is going to be the second time I'm going to get angry. Kind of angry. I don't know if they actually got the scripts for this mixed up with some kind of comedy. What are you talking about? What? Elena was definitely not the one that held him at gunpoint. I have never read any source at all, ever, which said Elena Ceaușescu came up to the driver like Tony Soprano and held him at gunpoint. You can see the bodyguards there, and they did have bodyguards who were armed. Why would Elena be going up thinking she's some kind of mob boss? No. I really would like to see a source for that because that is incredible. That is an incredible story if it's true. I mean, I don't believe it's true, not at all. Well, what do you mean she came up? She was the one holding him at gunpoint. What? This is crazy. Okay, this is probably going on for too long. Me just saying this is crazy and stupid. But seriously, what I need to see a source for that. If it's true, which again I don't think it is, please BBC get me that source which it says Elena Ceaușescu was the one that held him at gunpoint. I want to see that because I mean she could have had an acting career in The Sopranos with that kind of acting. Come on, but no, that's really it. That seems absolutely fanciful, and I've never seen any sources towards that. So no, I do not believe Elena Ceaușescu was the one that held the driver at gunpoint. It was very likely that I've had the authority of just seeing the president and his wife and an armed bodyguard stopped him, or physically it was just the armed bodyguard with his rifle, not Elena Ceaușescu. Yeah, okay, it's funny, but also kind of annoying because that is just completely fanciful. Okay, so at 20 minutes 10 seconds, we get a much clearer view of the officer's uniform. Firstly, it's blue, which signifies the Securitate, which were not involved in the capture or arrest. Secondly, the insignia itself, I have no idea what that large oval insignia is. Firstly, it's massive. It is absolutely massive for a visor. It's absolutely not any of the either Socialist, People's Republic, Romanian ones that I have ever seen. Also, looking online, it does not seem to be any of the post-revolution, so democratic Romania, kind of modern-day Romania's cockades, visors. I have no idea what that is. It is massive, and I can kind of get a close look at it, but it's not brought me any closer. So we've talked over the colours, also the visor. Now the uniform itself, the collar tabs, which should be the laurels, they should be. It just looks like a small V here, rather than the laurels, which I will put on screen now. And also, it's too far away, but if we're closer up, there should also be a coloured backing to these laurels. But if it was a blue colour backing, which would be correct, that also wouldn't be correct, because as we've said, the blue was Securitate, and they were not involved in this arrest. So at 20 minutes 16, for those eagle-eyed viewers, and also if you pause it, firstly the belt. Let's start with the belt. The Romanian officers would either wear no belt at all, as seen in these pictures, or they would wear the diagonal belt. They would not just wear a single waist belt like this. I've never seen it. And secondly, it is way too low. That's almost below his belly button. It's not great for his figure, and also it's just incorrect. Also the trousers. Now if you look closely, you can actually see that the stripe along the side of his trousers is red, which signifies the infantry. But obviously he's wearing blue on his jacket and his visor, so that does not match. And thirdly, that stripe is way too big for it to be an authentic Romanian stripe. I will put pictures up on now of how the stripe look on trousers. So yeah, that is the stripe, although it's infantry, which is good, is also way too big, so it's not correct. Also, as we'll say, we'll move closer, but the collar tabs of the soldiers there are absolutely massive as well. They are ginormous. And also, of course, as we mentioned before, it's not a Romanian greatcoat at all. So it's not a greatcoat, and it's also the collar tabs are absolutely ginormous. Another point is, which we'll get onto later, I think, hopefully, if there's more close shots, it might not be, is the soldiers are wearing shirts that you would pair with a tie. Soldiers did get summer shirts, but there was no top button. And even if there was a top button, they wouldn't use a tie because they just wouldn't. It's not part of the uniform. So it's kind of weird that they're wearing greatcoat with a shirt that would be worn with a tie all the way up to the top, but without the tie. Even with the tie, it'd be wrong, but without the top, it just looks even more stupid. So yeah, I will put a picture up now of their summer shirts, so you can see that they did kind of get a collared shirt, but you also spot that there is no top button, so it would always be open a little bit at the collar.
He is worried that the presence of the Ceaușescus makes the barracks a target for Securitate snipers. Across Romania, people are still unsure as to the whereabouts of their leaders. Fierce street battles erupt between the army, now supporting the revolution, and Securitate snipers loyal to the Ceaușescus.
So, 20 minutes, 56 seconds. This is something that I will make a full video about, but just to put it straight and plain, No, the Securitate, there was no organised Securitate kind of organisational actions against revolution. That's not true. It's easy to say, oh look, here's the security units. Of course they'd be against revolution. And there was fighting, but as I will show you from the book, which gives excellent sources, original sources, and also references commissions, Romanian commissions after the revolution, which analysed the revolution themselves. No, most of the deaths after the protest broke out, after Ceaușescu had fled, they were friendly fire. They were friendly fire because, again, I will make a full video on this, but you had the patriotic guards. You had patriotic guards that were in civilian uniforms, clothing. You had civilians who had been given weapons. Again, I will source this. They were given weapons as long as they had an ID. And you had all these people armed and worrying and fearing because the Revolution and National Salvation Front were putting things like, oh, you know, in a few hours, there's going to be a big convoy of anti-terrorist soldiers and Securitate which are about to storm the TV headquarters. So the tension and the anxiety, I cannot begin to put into words. So yes, they would just start shooting, and most of it was friendly fire. There is one quote from the book in which a tank officer had been ordering his one of his tanks to fire at a building for hours, and the reason he gave was because he wanted to. That is generally referenced in the book. So you have people who just wanted to let off steam, you had genuine criminals, and you had those so jumpy, not in their own fault because of the system which had been created, but so jumpy they'd fire at any building. So no, there was no Securitate organised resistance. Most of those that were seen as terrorists, the kind of snipers, those that are called snipers, also called terrorists in general, most of them were let off after the revolution because there was no actual evidence. It was flimsy. Again, in the book it references that most of those who were arrested as terrorists were kind of told on by those that just wanted to do it for personal reasons. There was no genuine evidence that they were against revolution, and they would be arrested for the flimsiest of reasons. But this is something that's for a different video, totally going over the kind of the lie and the myth that the Securitate were against revolution. It's not true, and I will make a full video on it because I'm kind of rambling and going on into details about stuff that will be perfect just for a video by itself.
The army and the people succeed in rounding up Securitate agents, who are then interrogated and executed.
And at 21 minutes or 7, we can see the violence against what is sadly most likely just an innocent person. As I mentioned, there was no organised Securitate resistance. People would be arrested for wearing unusual clothes, for having ID cards from a different city. Genuinely, if you went to Bucharest and had a different ID card, there you go, you're a Securitate sniper, you're a terrorist. Let's beat you up, as can sadly be seen in here, and maybe you'll be shot, maybe you'll go on trial, but most likely you'll just be let off in a few months. But you'll have the scars of just like being filmed, beaten in the street, because someone says, oh look, you're from a few towns over, so therefore you must be some kind of terrorist. So that is kind of the sad truth.
On Christmas Day, 5 helicopters land at Târgoviște barracks.
Okay, so the uniform for the General Ceaușescu. Again, so firstly, for the visor, the chin strap is incorrect. It's not the same style. And the laurels on the front visor part itself, they aren't the ones that I would use in Romanian visors. I will put a picture up now of what a general's visor would look like. Again, it's got the same cap insignia of the colonel we saw before, but again, I have no idea what it is. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. It takes up like half the visor, but I have not been able to make out what it is. Also, the laurels, the collar tab laurels on his jacket. From what I have not seen ones which have a kind of square backing. I mean, it almost looks German. I'll put some examples up now, but I've personally not seen any design like that. Which, you know, I could be wrong, but I have not seen any proof of a style like that existing.
General Stănescu assembles all the personnel who are to conduct the military trial.
Okay, so now we can see 23-25, the two uniforms of the officers together. And And wow, yeah, not great at all. The Stanlescu's one on the right is kind of badly fitting, and again we've said about the belts. Actually, wait a sec. I've just noticed now. One of them's got the belt the wrong way around. Because on the left you can see the two pins on the right, and on the right you can see there are two pins on the left. I would like to state this because when we look at the footage, the original footage of Captain Burrow wearing his parachutist uniform, I'm not here to say that the BBC had to get every single thing correct. Uniforms like the parachutist ones from Romania are incredibly rare and expensive, so I would have thought that if they had more money for this, that they would have made just a reproduction, because it's not that complicated, the parachutist uniform itself. But what I get angry with is when there's just clearly no attempt. Like for the greatcoats, they're cheap and they were absolutely available to them, so I don't see any excuse for that. But for the more difficult uniforms to get, there's so many options open to them, and especially back then as well. So, and this is the BBC again. This is not a student project. I would have thought that there would have been just a bit more effort put into this. So I just want to say that I don't expect them to get, spend thousands on rare uniforms to wear, but for stuff that they can get and is cheap, I expect, in my personal opinion, I do expect them to get that. But for the more rare stuff, if they have trouble sourcing it, which is kind of obvious, there's reproductions, and also they can just hire out contractors to make stuff for them. I mean, this is the BBC. It's not, it's not a local school fete. They have more than enough money to be able to produce uniforms that would be correct for this. So yeah, sorry, that's my little rant over. Let's get on to the next part. So less than 5 seconds later, we can now see the uniforms. So firstly, yes, they did have, as previously mentioned, an SS-8 style Soviet helmet, but this was not used at all during the Revolution. They used the reimagined Second World War design and also refurbished Second World War helmets, as was shown in the last video, and they would not have worn their Soviet-inspired helmet that they did during the People's Republic. Again, we can see the shirt, which is done up to the top. For some reason, if you're going to do a shirt up to the top, either have a tie or don't do it up to the top. I mean, to be honest, either way, it would still be wrong because they didn't have a shirt which didn't all the way up to the top, as mentioned. The greatcoats we can see a lot closer now. It looks like to be some kind of British, possibly. I'm not great on my kind of British military, but in my opinion, it does look British. So yeah, the helmet, the shirt, the greatcoat, not great for the soldier.
Eleanor is outraged when the court strips her of all her academic titles. When asked to explain why he fled the Central Committee building, Ceaușescu looks pointedly at the assembled witnesses. He begins to realize the devious role Stancu...
So at 24 minutes 52, we can see Stanlescu's uniform. So as I mentioned, the laurels, there's a lot more of them, and it's obviously in the correct pattern. And also the uniform itself, we can pick out all the different features and compare them to what they had, and see that it's really not the best recreation of the uniform itself.
Ceaușescu has played in their downfall. The court orders a recess to consider its verdict. The lives of Romania's leaders hang in the balance. They are to be shot immediately, despite Romanian law of the time forbidding execution within 10 days of a death sentence. Captain Buero has been told to wait for Stanculescu's death sentence. But when Ceaușescu emerges, Buero's feelings get the better of him.
Right, so this is the last point I'll be making at 27:20. I cannot put into words just how confused and angry I am at this point. The video physically states his emotions got the better of him. No, they didn't. No. And also, he didn't just shoot them as they were walking out. What is this? A camera angle? What was... What? No, he did not... He did not see them. His emotions got the better of him, and he just shot at them as they were walking to the wall. I don't get where they come up with this stuff. I genuinely don't. I I just it really blows my mind. Especially, and as I can be a bit cocky, because in another documentary, which I also will be viewing, looking over and viewing, called The Lost World Communism, their episode in Romania, they actually interview Cadmbero, and he says that two paratroopers next to him were slow to fire, and so he fired first. It doesn't mention anything about him getting the emotions getting better of him. He simply says that he was the first one to fire because the others were too slow to, because it had been their president and his wife so many years. They kind of panicked as in didn't shoot, or panicked as in they were scared to shoot because of the authority they had had up until that point, not panicked and shot, or as this video says, his emotions got the better of him and he shot first. He shot first because the others didn't, not because of his emotions. So it blows a mind. It really is just comical. He did not see them, immediately put his gun up, and as they were walking past, they looked at him and he shot them. That's not true at all. In fact, in the book, if we go down to the sources, it also talks about how the firing squad was undisciplined as well. So earlier, when it said the captain made sure to select the best man, he was selecting those who would not worry about pulling the trigger, as this documentary says. That's wrong on 2 points, because firstly, they were incredibly timid over firing, and secondly, they were incredibly, according to the sources, undisciplined. So this is so wrong on so many fronts. It's such a disappointment, especially when they make it kind of comical. I know I'm going over some points, but especially when they make it comical, when he sees them, they kind of comically turn, say, "Oh my God, are you going to shoot us?" Then he shoots them. No, that's complete fallacy, and it's a really bad ending to the documentary, especially when I went over that they do have some good points, to share and to teach people about. But when, firstly, on one hand, they have the uniforms, which I don't think they took any care with, and secondly, on parts which they just seem to have made up. Let's go over them. Firstly, they edited the audio to put the Timisoara chant over it. Not true at all. You can search up on YouTube right this second and listen to the entire original audio. At no point does it start shouting Timisoara. Secondly, the point where they have Elena Ceaușescu hold up the car like just Tony Soprano, that I've never seen any source for that. If it did happen, that's amazing, and I want the source for it, but I'm pretty sure it didn't. And the third point like this, like comical, we're walking out to our execution. Is that the paratroopers? They're going to shoot us? Oh, my emotions got the better of me. I just shot them. Didn't happen. Not true. So, really bad way to end the documentary. So, I hope I've been able to put forward, with the correct sources, my points. If you wish to go against them, completely go for it. As long as you have sources and you can name sources, I will look over them. And if I've made errors, hey, I've made errors, and that's my fault. And I am happy to take responsibility for making errors. So yeah, that's the second part done. Because the first part is so popular, and if this is kind of a popular idea to go over documentaries and show what parts are they get right, which parts they could improve on, with reference to sources, I am currently thinking of doing 2 other documentaries: The Lost World Communism, as mentioned, about the Romanian Revolution, and also an American one which was filmed pretty much within a year after the revolution. So I'm also going to go over that. That one is more just information rather than recreations, but it'd still be good either way. So I hope you enjoyed this video on this analysis. Please like, comment, subscribe, because as stated, I'm a small channel. You can write anything in the comments. I'll read it and probably give it a like. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a wonderful Easter. Thank you for watching and listening.